Hello listeners everywhere. Welcome to the Archive of Audio Antiquities, a voyage into the vaults of wonders on the wireless. In a moment, Simon Exton and Ken Moss will be here to speak to you.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome back to the Archive of Audio Antiquities. I'm Ken Moss.
I'm Simon Exton.
And this time we're listening to the 2008 BBC radio adaptation of James Bond, Dr. No.
Dr. No by Ian Fleming, dramatised by Hugh Whitemore, starring Toby Stephens as James Bond, with John Standing, Janie Dee, Peter Capaldi, Nicky Henson, Samuel West, Clark Peters, Lisa Dillon, and David Suchet as Dr. No. The character of Ian Fleming, relaxing with a vodka martini and a handmade cigarette at GoldenEye, his house in Jamaica, is the narrator.
Bond is sent to investigate a strange disappearance on the island of Jamaica and discovers that the heart of the mystery lies with a sinister recluse known as Dr. No. This was dramatised for radio by Hugh Whitemore to celebrate the centenary of Ian Fleming's birth. It was directed by Martin Jarvis and produced by Rosalind Ayres, featured a full cast with Toby Stephens as James Bond for the first time, and it was first broadcast on BBC Radio 4 on Saturday the 24th of May 2008.
March came in like a rattlesnake. Hail, icy sleet, forsake gale. Harold Macmillan, the new Prime Minister, shivered as he looked out of the greyness of Horse Guards Row. With Britain still smarting after the debacle of Suez, the political situation was as cheerless as the weather. A mile or so away, an old black Silver Wraith Rolls-Royce stopped outside a tall building in Regent's Park. A middle-aged man with shrewd grey eyes climbed stiffly out onto the pavement. Hail hit him in the face like a whiff of small shot.
You won't be needing the car again today, Harris. I'll use the tube this evening. No weather for driving a car.
Aye, sir. Thank you, sir.
He went up in the lift to the 8th floor and along the thick carpeted corridor to his office.
Good morning, Miss Moneypenny.
Good morning, sir.
Bring me the signals, please, and anything else you've got.
Straight away, sir.
He went into his office and closed the door. He took out a large blue silk bandana handkerchief and brusquely wiped it over his face, something he'd never have done in front of the porters or the liftman.
Let me have the Strangways file, please, Miss Moneypenny.
Yes, sir.
And tell the Chief of Staff I'll see 007 in half an hour.
Very good, sir.
Dr. Julius No, which I don't remember being in the film.
It wasn't that I recall.
And you live and breathe the films, so...
I do quite like them. I mean, just a bit of background to this. This was the first in a series of Bond adaptations. At the time of recording in 2025, they've done 10. Big fan of this. I remember this going out at the time. It was a bit of a big deal, and I loved it. So I really, really basked in it. I was hoping that it was closer to the novels than the films were, because the films deviated quite a lot, is being generous. This was far closer to the book.
Doesn't stop the films being wildly entertaining.
Oh, no, of course not. And there's only one that I think's an absolute dog, and that's Diamonds Are Forever. No matter how many times I watch it, thinking it can't be that bad, it's worse. So that's the only one I really don't enjoy. But the books themselves, there's a marvellous simplicity to them that the films, quite understandably, they veered away from. They wanted something a little bit more exciting for the screen. I mean, Moonraker, they basically took the title and it's an entirely different plot altogether. It bears no relation to the book at all. So it's certainly not to denigrate the movies, but this...
I've never read Moonraker. I've read quite a few of them, but that's one that I haven't read.
It's a very, very long time ago, to the point where I can't remember what goes on in it.
I mean, I've read them all when I was a teenager. I think it was Dad who was quite keen on it. We had all the books at home, and my parents had very eclectic taste in books, and that's a lot of what I read when I was a teenager. But the full set of James Bonds was one of them. Or apparently not, because they didn't have Moonraker.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the books.
Or is it not a short story?
No, the short stories were Living Daylights, Octopussy, For Your Eyes Only, The Spy Who Loved Me, and Quantum of Solace, Rizzico, 007 in New York. What else was there? Property of a Lady. So they were all buried within collections. Getting back to Dr. No.
You couldn't tell that was David Suchet, was it?
No, now I didn't know how you would take David Suchet as Dr. No, because it's a very, very different performance. And it's something I think you could only really get away with on audio. I think if that was done as a visual thing, it might be a little bit too distracting and almost viewed as a comedy character. The voice itself is very distinctive. It was perfect for the part, but it was certainly an interesting voice to listen to on radio. I'm a big fan.
How are your lamb cutlets, Mr. Bond?
Fine.
And your chicken a l'anglaise?
It's very good, thank you.
Good. And so, my next task was to find a suitable site for my headquarters. It had to be an island. It had to be entirely private. It had to be capable of industrial development. I have been here for 14 secure and fruitful years. And then one day, I got a letter from the Audubon Society. A letter about these wretched birds, these roseate spoonbills. The Society gave me formal notification that they intend to build a hotel on their leasehold. Mr. Bond, can you believe it? The privacy I had achieved, the plans I had for the future, all this to be swept aside by the idiotic Audubon Society and their stupid birds.
I really didn't like it.
I didn't think you would, and the reason why...
It was very strangly vampire at the Siege of Buda Castle.
That's exactly what I thought when I was listening to it. For me, it conveyed the absolute madness, the descent into madness of the character that came through in the book, which was massively watered down for the film.
Yes.
On balance, the film would not have worked with that sort of performance. I think on radio, you get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it distracted from things as much as the strangly vampire in Buda Castle, because James Bond is almost, and you're going to hate me saying this, almost drag queeny in the level of over the top. I don't mean that James Bond wanders around in drag, but what I mean is it's that very big, dramatic, larger than life, this could never happen in real life, but it's James Bond, so fuck it, we're just going with it.
Well, you say that, but that's part of the reason I don't like Diamonds Are Forever, because it just, Blofeld literally drags up. And it just completely undermines the character because it's done in such a ludicrous way. But I agree that the films do have that pantomime element to them, particularly during the Roger Moore years.
I think the books do as well, to a lesser extent, but you're not reading John le Carré. It is very much a spies in the way that they never were, and all the overblown Bond shagging anything that moves and nobody just taking him out the back and putting a bullet in his skull, as would happen in any realistic situation. It's all very caricatured. And it's entertaining, but I think when you've got that level of caricature, no, maybe caricature is the wrong word, maybe just sort of played to the gallery and hamminess ramped up to 12. And it's wildly entertaining, and that comes across in the books as well. Okay, the books are nowhere near as fluffy as the films are, and there's some really quite nasty and brutal stuff in it, and you don't really get that take on it until you get to the Daniel Craig and Casino Royale. Now, I love Casino Royale. I think it's an absolutely wonderful film, but it's very different to the Bond films that came before.
Yeah, and Casino Royale, when that came out, I was quite convinced that due to what had gone before, they wouldn't adapt the book. Now, the sort of the middle third of the film is almost the book verbatim, and they've tacked on a bit of extra story at the beginning and end, and it works. As a result, Casino Royale is now my favourite James Bond film. It was GoldenEye for a very long time.
You see, I love both versions of Casino Royale.
Yeah, I've never fallen in love with the 67 version.
Yeah, but you're not really a fan of 60s pop culture, and I am.
That's true. That is true. Again, I'll say this much for the books. It's been a long time since I've read them, but I don't remember the villains in them. Although they were, as you say, a little bit exaggerated in what they were up to and the performance, and there was a believability to it, to the situations. Like Dr. No, his whole raison d'etre was just, I've had a bad life, Leave me the fuck alone. I want to earn lots and lots and lots of money and just live alone on my island.
Which would have been absolutely fine if he hadn't started fucking around with the local missiles.
Well, again, he was just completely barking. I can bend radio waves to crash missiles into the sea and sell them to the Russians for whatever I like. So, again, there's a logic to it, but the guy is clearly barking, and you're given enough backstory as to why he's barking. It's not just, I want to take over the entire world, and I've got all this incredibly sophisticated technology to help me do it. No one's quite sure how they've got all this tech, where it's come from, who's built it, and how it's got on this island without anybody knowing about it. There's none of that in this. The story itself, there's a logic to it. I like that a lot more than I like the film. The books themselves, the stories were a lot more believable. There was a logic from A to B to C.
Compared to the films, I'd give you that. I don't think the books are believable in the slightest.
No, but there's a logic as to how the villains have got that. It's not just sort of, I want to take over the world. I've got a big fuck-off nuclear reactor in a mountain that I've hollowed out. How have you done all that? How have you done this on your own? I've built an underwater base on legs. How have you done this? So with Dr. No, there's a logic to how he's got, where he's got, how he's earned his money to build this empire, to get the tech. The whole backstory's filled in, whereas in some of the Bond films, it's just, this is a big bad. He's got this base up a mountain. How? You don't ask that question. It's James Bond. It just fucking is.
Yeah, and this absolutely was much closer to the books.
I'm struggling, actually. There were very slight deviations, but I'm struggling to pick them out, to be honest.
It's years since I've read Dr. No.
But considering this was written in 1958, I thought beyond the references to smoking cigarettes every 5 minutes, it had quite a passable modern feel to it. So it was very definitely the old school of spying, but it didn't feel like something written in the 50s.
But it wasn't really adapted as a period piece, was it?
No, it wasn't, but they've kept a lot of it. I think the references to the Beretta and the Walther PPK, well, I don't know anything about guns, but they're probably outdated now. Again, I couldn't give a toss. But that is, I like the fact that they are set at the time that they are. And again, I'm going to have to go back and read them again now because it's really whet my appetite for it. But there was a definite shift in the books once the movies started coming out. So there were little elements of humour dropped into Bond that weren't there before the films. There was a slightly more sort of comic book flair to some of them once they'd started being released. But he was dead by 1964, so it was only the first couple. But cast-wise, I thought it was very strong as well. You've got Toby Stephens in his first outing as James Bond. Toby Stephens was Gustav Graves in Die Another Day. And he has played Bond in all of them.
And does a very good job. Definitely in keeping with the way the books are.
And it's nice because the entire series of plays have got a very consistent feel to them. It's the same production team all the way through. There's a continuity to the cast that is present right from the start. Bond played by the same man for all of the adventures. It works better that way than...
Yeah, in the way that John Moffat or David Suchet, once they'd found somebody that worked, they just carried on and did all of the Poirots, rather than Peter Ustinov did a few and Albert Finney was there and, oh dear God, Kenneth Branagh was there for about a week for each film. Have you seen any of the Kenneth Branagh Christie adaptations?
No, I didn't even know there were any.
He's done 3, Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile. Death on the Nile has some fun bits to it.
What, he's Poirot?
He's Poirot, and on Death on the Nile, they get French and Saunders doing the Bette Davis and Maggie Smith role. It's painful. It is so slow. They're really not worth watching, and Halloween Party, he basically ignores the entire plot. The very barest bones are there, but basically it's another story. Don't waste your life on those.
No, I didn't know about them before, and I'm quite happy to not know anything about them after. No, it doesn't appeal at all.
I'm surprised you haven't heard me rant about them. Anyway, back to Dr. No.
Back to Dr. No. Has it encouraged you to listen to any more of these? Well, you've not said yes straight away, so I'm going to take that as a no. But
No, it's not a no, but I would need a reason to do it. I would very happily do another one for an AAA, or if I was driving somewhere with somebody who wanted to listen to it, I wouldn't say, no, fuck off out the car. I'm not sure I would search it out. I thought there were some stylistic choices that didn't work. Fleming's writing is very nice, but they didn't need to read out gigantic chunks of it. I know it was Martin Jarvis wanting to get his Nick Briggs moment in. But I think an awful lot of the scenery setting that they did could have been done in dialogue with Bond, and that a lot of the scenery setting could be Bond describing to himself what he's seeing. So, oh yeah, there's that over there. I could use that for this, and this, rather than this slightly distracting discussion. I didn't need to know quite the detailed level of physical description of Bond that we were given. All of the scene setting didn't need to be as much of that sort of verbatim, straight out of the book description. I think they could have done that more efficiently. And that was much more towards the beginning, and it kind of put me off listening a bit.
Now, I didn't find that a problem, but now that you've pointed it out, I suppose it's quite an old-fashioned way of scene setting on the radio. Now, you would veer towards weaving it into the dialogue if you were doing an adaptation. I'd never really thought about it.
I'm not sure that depth of description is actually that old-fashioned.
No, I mean the intermissions with overlaid narration, it's quite an old radio technique. And
oh yeah, it is, but not to that extent. And if it had been, you know, we've listened to a lot of 1950s, 1960s, even 1970s stuff, and there wasn't that degree of description.
Well, to be honest, I'm trying to think now if we've listened to anything else that does have it in for AAA, and I don't even think that The Man in Black did that.
No, Point with Fear, he just tops and tails. But, you know, I listened to a lot of old radio stuff with the episodes of the Mysterious Old Radio Listening Society. And what they will do is sort of half-hour classic, usually American, but sort of pulp era radio. And they'll play the episode and then they'll describe it. So I listened to quite a lot of this old 40s, 50s, things like The Shadow. And I find it wildly entertaining, but there isn't that level of very flowery description, even back then. But to be honest, that's quite a minor niggle. It did wrong foot a little. The big thing I didn't like about this was the vocal performance of David Suchet.
Again, that's no surprise to me whatsoever, largely based on what you've said about the Doctor Who adventure, the Buddha Castle one. The vampire sounds like somebody's strangling him, or it just distracted you all the way through. So I thought, this is going to go through you like hot wire through butter. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, why don't we slot Casino Royale in at some point? Because that's pretty much my favourite James Bond story.
Oh, fine. Yeah, we'll put that in later down the run. Yeah, brilliant. I'd love to. Because I've not heard it yet. That'd be a nice one. Yeah.
Actually, a reread of Casino Royale that I did 4 or 5 years ago is the last time I read any of the Bond books.
Bizarrely, it was the last one I read, and that was about a bit longer, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. I reread it after we'd done a rewatch of the Daniel Craig Casino Royale, which is just wonderful.
I love it. To be honest, the last one, No Time to Die, is easily my least favourite Daniel Craig. I've only watched it once.
Haven't seen it.
Oh, you sent it me?
I know. Alan and Dad watched it when I was down at Sam's for Christmas the year that it came out, and all of them said it's the worst James Bond film they've ever seen. So I haven't really been inclined to watch it, but I adore Casino Royale in pretty much all its forms, actually. So yeah, we'll slot in at some point in our changing schedule Casino Royale.
Yeah, gladly. I can only assume that I will enjoy it because it is my favourite Bond novel. I just love the whole feel of the damn thing.
Oh, and their torture sequence about 2/3 of the way through is just horrible. And I was really surprised how well they did that in the film.
Well, again, it was expertly referenced in the film. I've never understood why people have elaborate torture devices when a man's spuds are the weakest point. But yeah, that's exactly what happens in the book. Loved it.
I'm glad I listened to this.
Yeah. Well, Bottom line, I really quite enjoyed this. I think we should probably rate it in earworms.
This is the song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friends.
What do you think?
7.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed this, and I think it's the level of love and care that's gone into it. I'm going to give it a 9. There's not many things on the radio. There's plenty of stuff that I'll listen to and enjoy, and it'll entertain me, but I wouldn't particularly go back to. With these adaptations, I've listened to a couple of them a few times now, and I think just the level of care that's gone into them, and they've got some real big names as well. These are not, we'll get all our mates involved, or, the same person.
I mean, the production values were marvellous.
Yeah. I mean, I take your criticism on board that the interstitials could have been done as dialogue. That's a fair point, actually. But overall, no, well worth a listen, particularly if you're a fan of Bond, either the books or the films. I think there's something here for you to take away.
And they'll continue singing it forever just because.
So it's time for us to recommend something else to listen to. It's Podcast of the Week. Dr. Exton, your forte, what have you got for us this time?
Well, I'm going to recommend quite a new podcast, and it's something called Wrong Turns with Jamila Jamil, who is an actress best known for being one of the regulars on The Good Place. It's absolutely hilarious. She basically gets together with a couple of comedians on each episode, and they each describe how at some point in their life they did something utterly embarrassingly ridiculous, and it is laugh out loud hilarious.
So next time, it's into Doctor Who territory, and we have a new series starting, the 13th Doctor Adventures with Jodie Whittaker. So we'll be listening to the very first one, Vampire Weekend.
Which I'm rather looking forward to, because I think she was very poorly served by the stories that she had and the depth she was able to go into. Now, I'm not expecting brilliance from the Nick Briggs show.
I'm going into it with an open mind, but the same level of optimism, because I think that there is massive potential there for Jodie Whittaker, in much the same way that Colin Baker wasn't best served on TV and the audios really gave him his legs. I'm hoping we get the same treatment for Jodie Whittaker, and she gets appreciated for what she... Because we did see that first flash of her, the real her, towards the end of the last TV series when she made the cameo. That was the Doctor she should have been on screen the entire time.
Yes, I agree. I would love to believe that Big Finish will have pulled out all the punch and got their best writer to write something. What I think will happen is that they will have got the mate who wants the feather in the cap of writing the first, Jodie Whittaker, to do something unimpressive.
We'll find out next time.
I don't have high hopes for the story, but I have high hopes for her.
Until next time, thank you very much, as always, for paying us a visit in the archive. Happy listening. We'll be back soon.
Bye.
The Archive of Audio Antiquities featured Simon Exton and Ken Moss, and the announcer was Jenny at Blue Box 99. All featured soundtracks are the property of their respective producers, and no infringement of copyright is intended. Title music was by Edward White, and the programme was produced by Maverick Productions. For more information, please visit maverickproductionsuk.blogspot.com or find us on social media.